Generation 180 is co-hosting the National Solar Tour in partnership with Solar United Neighbors and American Solar Energy Society. It's the largest grassroots renewable energy event in the nation, and it's in its 25th year. And of course, this year it's virtual. In years past, you would have joined an open house or local tour in your community, but this year you're able to participate in as many open houses and tours as you want. So I encourage you to check out the virtual open houses online and explore the map to learn about homes, businesses, government buildings, nonprofits, and schools that have all gone solar. So we're excited to have over 75 solar schools in the tour this year, and we're sharing 2 amazing examples with you today. Next slide. The National Solar Tour has put together a week of events related to solar energy with a different theme each day. Generation 180 has organized today as Solar for Schools Day, since it's the first day of October and National Energy Awareness Month. So later today at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, we'll be hosting a discussion on electric school buses with Dream Corps' Green for All, along with school districts in Stockton, California and Concord, Massachusetts, who are transitioning their fleets away from fossil fuels. Tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, we are hosting a discussion with Sierra Club's climate parents and high school students from Tacoma, Washington and Portland, Maine, who have led the charge for solar at their schools. So we hope you can make it to these events as well later today, and there will be recordings made available for all the events in case you missed them. Next slide. So before we introduce our speakers today, we wanted to know a bit about you. So we posted a poll question while you're waiting for us to begin, and I can give you a moment now to answer if you haven't done so already. Okay, so I see the responses coming in. So thank you for sharing a little bit about you. It's helpful for us as speakers to know who's in the audience. So we're definitely seeing almost a third of you as solar clean energy professionals, almost a third of you as solar advocates and supporters, and we have a good number of students and school staff here as well. So we welcome all of you. Thank you for joining. So now I just want to go over a few reminders before we get started. We will keep all attendees on mute throughout the presentation. And you can use the chat to communicate with the event hosts and panelists if you're having any technical issues or have a private comment. But we encourage you to please type your questions into the Q&A tab. And that way other attendees can see your questions. And you can actually also upvote questions if you also want to hear one answered. So that'll help us identify and prioritize popular questions when we get to the end. So we will be answering the audience questions at the end of the session, and we will do our best to get to as many of them as we can. Okay, next slide, please. And my name is Tish Tablan. I'm Generation 180's Program Director for Solar for All Schools campaign, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by 2 inspiring school district leaders who are innovating solutions for their school districts using solar energy. Dr. Michael Hester is the superintendent at Batesville Public Schools in Batesville, Arkansas, and he decided to go solar so that his district could utilize the energy cost savings to afford teacher raises. Laura Capps is the president of the Board of Education at Santa Barbara Unified School District in Santa Barbara, California. And after dealing with wildfires and mudslides in the region, she led her district to move forward with 6 solar-powered microgrids that can keep schools operating during power outages. So we will be hearing about their amazing stories shortly. Next slide. So first, I want to take a moment to introduce my organization, Generation 180. We are a national nonprofit based out of Charlottesville, Virginia, working to inspire and equip individuals to take action on clean energy. Next slide. We believe that your energy matters, and we focus on individuals in their homes and communities because your energy choices can help fight climate change, but also can help build the social momentum and political will we need to make big system level changes. We're working to flip the energy script, which means moving from a narrative focused on climate doom and gloom to a story focused on where we need to go, which is a world powered by 100% clean energy. Our story says we can do this and we all have a role to play. So our two major national campaigns focus on solutions that address the two largest sources of carbon dioxide emissions: electricity generation and transportation. Our Electrify Your Ride campaign works to make EVs more accessible, and our Electrify Your Ride Week is happening right now. So you can go to our website at generation180.org and you can find more virtual events about electric vehicles happening throughout the week up through Saturday. So please go to our website to find that schedule. And then for our Solar for All Schools campaign, we're leading a nationwide movement that will help schools reduce energy costs, enhance student learning, and foster healthier communities for all. We leverage the integral role that K-12 schools can play in reaching students, parents, neighbors to encourage clean energy action throughout the community. Next slide. So why schools and clean energy? Why have we picked schools to work on? So for two reasons. First, schools have a great opportunity to transition to clean energy. Schools generally have big flat rooftops or a lot of land, and there is a great opportunity to decarbonize through schools going solar. So in our calculation, if all schools in the United States went solar, 100% solar, that would be equivalent to reducing carbon emissions equal to closing 18 coal-fired power plants. So there's a lot of potential for schools to reduce carbon emissions and protect the climate by going solar. The other reason we're interested in schools is because there is a school in every community, and schools are very influential within their communities. So we look at schools as examples of what we want to see in our communities, so they can help lead the way to educate students about clean energy, to inspire parents and families to go solar in their own homes, and to inspire neighboring school districts to also switch to clean energy. And we're seeing that already with schools that have successfully gone solar. They're definitely influencing others to do the same by sharing their benefits. Next slide. So what are the benefits for schools to go solar? There are definitely an array of benefits, from energy cost savings to creating educational opportunities for students, whether it's using the technology at school to educate about science and engineering with students, or to train students for future careers in clean energy. Solar PV installer is one of the fastest growing jobs in the country right now, and schools can play a role in helping prepare a clean energy workforce for the future. You know, as we'll hear from Laura Capps, schools play an important role in resiliency for the communities. Schools are often community centers after a natural disaster or after a power outage. And in Santa Barbara, they're working to make solar-powered microgrids, to use solar-powered microgrids to be able to power their schools during power outages. So there are many, many benefits that schools can receive by going solar. So I'm excited to share where we are with schools and solar now. Next slide. So as part of our campaign, Generation 180 has been tracking what is the progress of schools going solar in the country. So in 2017, we partnered with the Solar Foundation and Solar Energy Industries Association to put out a Brighter Future report. And we've updated it and released it just a couple of weeks ago. So here I'm sharing some of our latest numbers of what we're seeing with schools going solar. So right now, there are, at the end of 2019, there are 7,332 schools with solar. And that's 5.5% of all K-12 schools. We're seeing 1,332 school districts with some kind of solar in their district. And that's 16% of all school districts in the country. So we have 5.3 million students who attend a school with solar. So we're inspiring millions of students to see what their future could look like with clean energy and a healthier planet. So with all of the benefits that schools and communities can see from going solar, we feel like there's a great opportunity to keep those numbers growing. Next slide. So the amount of solar in schools has grown significantly over the past 5 years alone. So currently there's 1,337 megawatts of installed solar capacity on schools. So that's enough clean energy to power 254,030 US homes with that amount of solar. So that amount of solar in schools has grown by 139% in the last 5 years. So it's more than doubled. And the number of schools has grown by 81% in the last 5 years. So we're seeing tremendous growth. And a lot of that growth has to do with solar policy and access to solar. Next slide. So in our report, you can see these numbers I just shared. You can also see how your state ranks. So the top 5 states for solar on schools are California, New Jersey, Arizona, Massachusetts, and Indiana. So you'll notice these aren't necessarily the sunniest states that have the most solar on schools. What these states generally have in common are friendly solar policies. Next slide. So I think an important thing to point out from the data that we collected from schools is how schools are funding solar. So especially in this time during the pandemic where schools are seeing budget shortages and they're having to figure out how to do more with less and how to fund these transitions to virtual learning. Schools need to squeeze every dollar they can. Fortunately, what we found in our study is that 79% of the solar installed on schools was actually funded by third parties. So that's typically a solar developer that installs, owns, and pays for the solar upfront so that the school district doesn't have to pay for solar out of their budget. And what the school district will do is purchase the electricity produced by those solar panels, and typically at a lower rate than what the utility would charge. So school districts are going solar with no upfront costs, and they're seeing immediate energy savings. This kind of solar financing is typically only enabled by state policy. So currently there are 28 states plus DC and Puerto Rico that enable third-party power purchase agreements. Arkansas is one of the newest states to this list, partially thanks to Dr. Hester. He's one of the advocates to ask for this policy and talk about the benefits that solar has been providing to this district. Next slide. So again, one of the most important benefits that we're talking about with schools and solar is the potential for energy cost savings. So in our report, we have different case studies, including Santa Barbara Unified School District and Batesville, talking about how much money that schools are saving. You can look in our report and we talk about Tucson Unified School District, which is the 3rd largest district in the state of Arizona. It also used third-party financing to go solar, and it was able to put 23.8 megawatts of solar on 80 schools, nearly every school in the district. And as a result, the school is going to save $43 million over the next 20 years. And to put it in context, Arizona is a state that ranks almost at the very bottom for state funding per student. So when I spoke with the superintendent, he said all of those savings from going solar is going right into paying for critical capital costs, such as buses, computers, building repair, sports equipment, you name it. So solar is a way to help school districts with financial resiliency. And that's just one of the amazing stories that we've shared in our report. And I'm happy to have both Michael Hester and Laura Capps share their stories now. And Dr. Hester, I will give it to you. I think you need to unmute, please. Still muted. I'm not hearing you, Dr. Hester.
All right, can you hear me?
There we go. Yes, we can hear you now.
Well, I want to thank you, Tish and Nate, for inviting us to share our story, and thank you to Generation 180 for the work you're doing across the country. We think that this is going to do for the country what it's done for Batesville School District, and again, sharing and featuring our story is an honor for us, and we hope that you get as much, if not more, of the results that we've had from it. So I'm Dr. Hester, Michael Hester. I began 34 years ago as an English teacher, and I've been a high school principal and assistant superintendent, and now superintendent at Batesville, Arkansas. Batesville is the oldest town in Arkansas, established in 1821. And so it's a beautiful town. We're on the White River, one of the cleanest rivers in the country. And we're a rural district in that we're the medical and manufacturing hub and the shopping hub for the rural area. We are a town of probably 20,000, but we pull in about 80,000 for all those services from the area. And so we have 3,400 students and just a little over 500 staff. So that's a little bit about our district. We are located near the largest coal plant in the state. That coal plant only has a shelf life of 10 to 30 years, depending on who you talk to and what the times will dictate in the evolving energy story as well. So a lot of people have a lot of anxiety about what that means and what we're going to do. And so that weighs on people's mind here locally. 3 years ago, now going on 4, we as a school district met and we came up with 4 goals. Our strategic goals are, number 1, students first, but we put student achievement as our first goal. Then we went with attracting and retaining staff, because you can't have student achievement without putting great staff with those kids every day. And we were behind in our pay and how we were attracting or retaining our staff. And then we went with networking with partners, because we knew we couldn't do this alone and we needed to find other resources. And then our 4th goal was efficiencies and innovations. So we were looking
Dr. Hester, I think we froze for a minute there. Let's see if we can get him back.
For a $5.4 million project. We're also the state's first solar K-12 solar project. And we were the largest, but Integrity keeps selling these things. And I don't even know if we're the largest now, because it is going like crazy for districts here in Arkansas. And so we are looking to gain $2 million worth of profit from this project. We're guaranteed through Integrity to make $2 million in 20 years. Our latest numbers indicate that we'll go to 4 million, and we're going to double that in 20 years. But the guarantee is for 2 million. And if we don't meet those numbers, it's guaranteed, so it's safe for school boards, that the bills will be paid to make it work. Of that 5.4 million, 1.75 was on solar. We have 1,483 solar panel arrays in the field, and those solar panels track the sun, which gives us 25% more efficiency than just a stable solar panel. We've got over 700 solar panels on our canopy, where we load and unload for a junior high and high school. It's 600 feet long. It's like 2 football fields long. And it looks like you're pulling into an international airport. It is a beautiful thing. We made sure the bottom of it was not covered up, because we wanted students to look up and see how innovation and technology could be used in their lives and for practical purposes for, in this case, shelter from sun and rain, and just a beautiful appearance to our building. We generate 754 kilowatts of energy. We normally use 1,500 kilowatts, so it's a 50% for our district in an annual usage. When we started this with integrity, the laws have changed, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So now we're trying to move for what the laws allow currently. That's an annual savings of $362,134 a year. Again, I told you we were going to save over $4 million in 20. We are trying to create a partnership. Remember, that was one of our goals with the hospital, and we're trying to go for 2 to 3 megs now in that partnership. That the hospital uses 7 digits worth of utilities a year, and so we can leverage a real low rate with that kind of volume and that kind of partner. So we're looking forward to it. Our energy project, we replaced 6,238 LED lights. We replaced 119 single pane windows. We replaced 80 HVAC units that are high efficiency. And then we put 420 centralized controlled thermostats, which with a 2 to 4 degree variance for teachers to use in their rooms. We replaced 305 water fixtures, and we sealed the air leaks around doors, windows, and entries just to gain the efficiency. So that's kind of our efficiency story, the size and scope of it. Our bottom goal was we were looking for money to attract and retain teachers. And what we did is this last year we gave the largest raise to our teachers in the school district's 140-year history. And we look to even match that again in the next 2 years because of these savings. We went from, in our area, we have 5 districts in our county. We were number 4 from the bottom on pay. And we've gone to number 1. And we have never been at the state average in teacher pay, and now we're in the second quartile in the state of teacher pay. So we are excited about what it's been brought to Batesville.
Thank you so much. That is such an inspiring story. I love to hear that how successful it's been to use those savings to raise teacher pay. And we'll come back and drill into that little story more. We'll ask you some more questions, but I'm gonna hand it over to Laura Cap so she can talk about what they've been doing in Santa Barbara.
Okay, thank you. I was muted there by the host. Well, thank you, Tish, Generation 180, and Dr. Hester. I wish I had known about Generation 180 when I first got on the school board. And so for any school folks out there, it's just a great organization that I'm so happy to be connected with now. But it certainly would have helped me as I was building support and doing my own research and trying to get our school district solarized the way that we're about to be. So I'll back up and just also thank Dr. Hester for where he ended on his comments about teacher pay, because that also too is where I started, realizing that the way to transform our schools needed to be through a fiscal lens. And as a school board member, we are a governing board. We have the purse strings. And really, I take very seriously the fact that on a daily basis, when I'm making decisions on behalf of our school district, it's the taxpayer money. It's not my money. It's not a corporation money. It's the taxpayer money. And I believe that there's even a stronger obligation to be as fiscally responsible as possible. And so the way in which solar can save schools money. Schools never have enough money, certainly not now with COVID. And so the savings and talking about exactly the way in which savings will help increase teacher pay. In our area, we have a lot of issues with literacy, and that connection is so important to make sure the public and decision makers understand that the more we save in our electricity bills, the more we can put that money back to the betterment of our children. The reason why I ran, one of the main reasons why I ran for the school board in 2016 here in Santa Barbara, California, was because our schools were out of sync with our community. when it comes to sustainability. I'm from Santa Barbara, California. We live in a place that's 70 degrees most days. It was the birthplace of Earth Day. After the massive oil spill in 1969, Santa Barbara had the first Earth Day. And there's so many environmental nonprofits. Just as an example, on Earth Day itself, a third of our whole community actually goes to the festival. I mean, it's just really who we are. People drive electric, there's just solar on so many homes. But as bureaucracies sometimes run, our school districts literally didn't have one solar building. And we're one of the biggest property owners in the area with 21 schools and serving 14,000 kids. So as an environmentalist, it was a strong priority of mine to get on the board, and so to see what kind of change I could make. I had an environmental background, having worked with Al Gore, trying to pass cap and trade in the United States Senate, and working on different nonprofits, both national and local in Santa Barbara. And so I got elected, and it was one of the first things I started advocating for. You know, why aren't we doing composting? Why don't we have a sustainability committee? I just kind of trudged along in my capacity as a school board member to elevate these issues. And fortunately, where we live, there isn't any kind of ideological opposition necessarily, or there is some, perhaps, especially now with the kind of a divisive environment. But more so, it's just getting it on the radar and making it a priority. And so I did all the ways that I could do, and anytime a facilities project would come before the board, I would ask, well, what about the opportunities for sustainability measures? What about, could we solarize here? Could we do this or that? And what I'm leading to is that it unfortunately took a natural disaster to really catapult us forward into this huge, now transformational project that is underway. And that was a massive fire in December of 2017 in Santa Barbara that led to a massive mudslide. Actually, the term is debris flow, because literally cars and boulders destroyed hundreds of homes and took 26 lives. So it still is a traumatic event, especially for those who are directly involved, but for our whole entire community. And so that event shut down everything, it literally shut down the main freeway going through Santa Barbara for 2 weeks. And so people were stuck in their homes, and our schools really provided that connection point. One of the first calls I made was to our Boys and Girls Club. Can we serve food? You know, we have kitchens at most of our schools. Kids rely so much on the free and reduced meals that are served every day. How can our schools keep functioning even though life had basically come to a standstill in Santa Barbara? To the point, it also was to the point where our Office of Emergency Services held their daily press briefings at one of our high schools. And so it clicked into me and just reinforced something I had known, is that our schools are really, or should be, safe havens during times of disaster. They are neighborhood cornerstones. That's why I'm so proud to be a school board member, because they're the heart of our community. And especially in times of disaster, you know, everybody knows where their local school is. Our schools are not just in high income areas, they're also in low income areas and middle income areas. And so if we can keep the lights on literally at our schools when there are these power outages or climate related extreme weather events, which we know are just exponentially on the rise, then it'll be better for the entire community. So that's what led me to really push and advocate, thankfully with the full support of my fellow board members and the previous superintendent and the current superintendent. We're now on our way to transforming our schools, literally from being 0% reliant on renewables to 94% in a matter of a few years. And I'm just really excited to be able to share that story and hope that we get to the goal that Tish outlined at the beginning, that we could have, every school should be powered by solar. It's the taxpayers' funding, and it also sends and is such an important message to the next generation that the world that they're inheriting is one that we're, those adults that are put in charge for a short time are doing what we can to make sure we're being as sensible and sustainable as possible. So thanks for letting me speak. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but just here to carry the message and hope that more schools come on board.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. It's such a great story, and it's amazing how you're really going from 0% solar to 94% solar in a very, very short amount of time. That's tremendous, and it takes leadership to make something like that happen. So actually, Michael, if you want to unmute yourself, I'll kind of continue our discussion and ask you some more questions so we can learn a little bit more about your stories. So I'll start with you, Laura. You kind of touched on this already, some of that process for going solar. I know you told me before that it took you years of research to do this. This has been something you're passionate about. So tell us a little bit more about how you got interested in it. And then what did it take to convince some of your peers that this needs to be a priority for our district?
Yeah, thanks. I started doing research of existing school districts right next to us, sort of to the north and the south. And I specifically chose more lower income areas because there is still that rap that you only get to do this if you're, a high income area. There's still that stereotype that, oh, this is a luxury, or this is what fancy places do. And so I've specifically found good examples of school districts in even more impoverished areas than where I am from, in order to show, and I spoke with the sustainability directors, and I did this big, this presentation in a school board meeting and wrote op-eds to show, look at the savings that they're doing. This isn't for fancy schools. This is for every school. And that really was the way I started in to kind of help build consensus amongst the board and the district leadership, which just hadn't really been there yet previously. So it just hadn't really been on a priority that a board member had really pushed as consistently as I had. But then, like I already answered, it really took this massive disaster to kind of focus everybody and say, okay, yeah, let's do this. And the superintendent at the time really just grabbed hold of it and became impassioned about the project itself.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Yeah, financing, as I mentioned before, trying to bust that myth that you have to pay for it out of the school budget. So that is a way in, and that's something Generation 180 is really looking at. Is how do we help educate other decision makers that is something school districts can do if it's enabled in your state, and it doesn't matter what your budget is. Michael, can you share kind of a similar story about like how did you get there? What were some of your obstacles? Did you have everyone on board from the start to do this?
Tish, I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of unstable internet service here right in the middle of this. So I believe you asked me to talk about what it took to get into this.
Mm-hmm. I did. You might be cutting out again, but I can tell you that in talking to lots of districts. Can you hear me now? Can you?
Yeah, it's coming in and out, but we'll try to get through it here. It gets strong and holds, then sometimes it goes a little bit weak.
So you can, if you want to try stopping your video, that way at least we can hear your answer and see if that improves the audio. How about that? Okay, great. We'll give it a try. Yeah, tell us about your story, because I will say I've talked to a lot of school districts, and I can say your story is unique, and I don't hear that level of leadership and clarity about how we're going to direct energy savings to a really specific goal.
For us, can you hear me now?
Yes, keep going.
Okay. For us, we had partnerships with Integrity. And I don't know if Rick Vance from Integrity is on, But what we did is through this partnership, they came in and did an energy audit for us and ran through the numbers and then showed the numbers to us as administrators. We were able to answer questions. Then we got in front of the board with a work study and went through all the efficiencies and what it would mean for the board. And we also had to, our partners helped us with Act 464, which was a huge hurdle here. It allowed school boards to vote on this millage, this 5.4 million or whatever it costs, without going to a public vote. They could do it on the savings. They could pay for it and so our partner with integrity, working with our legislators and using their audit to show the numbers and then educate our board and use that for the community were key to everything for us. And really, for us, it was easy because the numbers just speak for themselves.
Right. Yeah. So really, once you saw the numbers, that everyone got on board with the incredible savings, and it was a performance guarantee, right?
Yes, in Arkansas, well, with integrity, they guarantee it. And I asked them, how many times have you missed your mark? He said, we haven't written a check yet, but it's guaranteed. So they were very conservative with their numbers. And again, we think if it keeps on like it's showing, we'll double what they guaranteed us to make 4 million versus 2 million over the next 20 years that will apply back into our budget.
Right. And then where did that vision come from to use that incredible amount of savings specifically for teacher pay? And I know you gave the teachers a carrot also to help conserve energy as well.
Yes, we did. Well, the carrot came from, when I was first hired 4 years ago, we had a strategic planning session to get our strategic goals for the district, to define our work. And so what we did is we listed all the issues and what the issues were for the district. And it ended up being the attracting and retaining. They wanted to network with partners. They needed efficiencies and innovations. And of course, on everybody's plate first is the student achievement. So that all came out in our goals and in our SWOT sessions. And so we were able to identify, fit right into how we could use the money, how we could network with partners to create other efficiencies. And then, of course, reducing our footprint and efficiencies was just a natural.
Great. So yeah, so it came out of some of your strategic priorities for your district, and this came up at the right time as the right way to fund it. So that's
Yes.
great. So I'll circle back to something that Dr. Hester pointed out, that this project wasn't really possible without a partner to do all of that. So I do want to share that message to school districts that you don't need to necessarily have all of that expertise in-house, that partnerships have made it possible. And Laura, maybe you want to share, what partnership helped you get through this process of deciding how to go solar, how to expand it into grids. You want to share a little bit about that, Laura?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we work with the Clean Coalition based in California, and they really came in and helped us develop the RFP and now choose the company. So that was and we couldn't have done it without them. And there's also other nonprofits in Santa Barbara. I was the former president of the board of one called the Community Environmental Council that really helped with just sort of the overarching advocacy for this to become such a priority for our district. Showing up to school board meetings and giving public comment and writing letters and to the editor and things like that. So there was a lot of momentum. And then the students, at one point in my advocacy on the school board for more sustainability, the students actually, two students took it upon themselves, I think as a project for their, in high school, they actually started a petition and got, a couple thousand signatures about wanting more sustainability in our schools.
And Dr. Hester, how about you? What kind of role have students played or have students engaged with the solar energy systems that are at your school district right now?
When I was first, strategic plan integrity is that they could they offer a sustainability education, which is a STEM green curriculum, and projects came to partners to, and of course, natural.
Great, yeah. And one
One
of
of
the
the
pictures
reasons
that we
that
were,
could which is a STEM green, it's called Learning Lab, and they offer teachers classroom hands-on, and we have web-based dashboards, we have indoor air quality testing, we have building learning programs, we have best practice resources, and then we have industry professional mentorships that go along with the curriculum and for our students. And then we also work with the local bee honey growers, and they help us with, we use that in our solar fields so that we don't have to mow, but we use the kind of plants and things that pollinate, and then we also go with honey production as well.
that's exciting. Yeah, sounds like you have a whole sustainability curriculum there that integrates solar plus some of the other things that you're doing. That's great. Now, Dr. Hester, how has your project been received by the community? What's been the response by students, by community members, parents, teachers? The teachers must be thrilled, at least.
Well, the teachers, you know, if these teachers get these green classroom professional certificates in STEM, then they become very popular, and we've lost 2 of them because they get recruited. And so it's a very, very good and needed area. And then on a resume, that looks great for a teacher. But with our town, we have cameras all over everywhere. And when we first put them in, we noticed a lot of traffic on weekends and nights. And then when we'd zoom in, we'd see a lot of senior citizens. And here in Batesville, one of the things to do is go cruising. Our senior citizens would go cruising, and they'd fill up a van and come look at the solar panels. And we'd see car after car of our senior citizens, and we did not expect the reaction of how appreciative they were, as what Laura said, that we were showing how we were using the tax dollars to go further. And of course, it excited them to see the future and to see how the technology for the future was going to be clean and green, and then minimize the tax payers' expenses.
Amazing. And Laura, what's been the response in Scarborough? So I know you really just made an announcement recently to select a developer for your project, and this has been in discussion for a while. So how has the school community been responsive to this while it's been in the works, and now that you've hit a next milestone of announcing who?
Yeah, they're supportive. I have to say, I was relieved that we had already established this and already expended some money last December. I'll just, you know, with COVID and everything focused on reopening schools and getting back into in-person learning and supporting our students, I was a little concerned that potentially the project could get shelved just because of the priorities, but thankfully our board hung in there with it, and we had already had enough, I believe, running room to, you know, in progress that we've made, and the community knew about it, that it didn't, at least, you know, the majority, no one's questioning why we're doing this now. They understand how important it is, despite all of the other priorities that are now on our plates that were, you know, unfathomable priorities that are now on our plates. So it just, I guess, sort of shows me that you have to keep pushing, and these things sometimes can take a while to lay the groundwork, but then once they're in front of you, you just keep moving forward and keep gathering momentum.
So for other school districts that are trying to do what you both are doing, with your leadership, what advice would you give them on, if you're dreaming big, these projects that seem like unachievable at the time, what advice would you give on how they can do something similar? Laura, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would, two things. Do the research on how much money can be saved and translate that into benefits to students so that it's very visceral. The same way that a homeowner, when you decide to go home, when you decide to go solar and you realize the cost savings, then you figure out, oh, you can pay off your credit card bill faster, or you can just make it very tangible. And then second thing would be to involve students and get students involved. There's probably a sustainability committee. There's certainly students who are, I say they're light years ahead of where we are as decision makers. The students get this, so involve them as much as you can. This is their future, and the more that they're engaged in this process of advocating for solar, I think the better prospect you'll have.
Great tips. Michael, how about you? What advice would you give about how to move the project forward? What have you learned?
I think the number one thing for us when I talk to anyone is I say, make sure you have the right partner to go into this, that they are going to be in business for the duration, that it's not just a business transaction, it's a partnership for 20 years. So for us, integrity was tied to Nabholz Construction, which is the largest and oldest construction company in Arkansas. So they had credibility that they have been around, they know what they're doing, their numbers are solid. There are a lot of people who show up at your door with a car. We talk on a regular basis. So I would say, if I'm referring to anyone and my name's on it, I want to make sure those partners are going to be legitimate people in the business.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think that's a good segue to our Q&A portion of the discussion. So we're seeing some questions pop in that kind of touch on that partnership. The one question that we've seen come in, and I think this is for Michael, is when you say make money, do you mean through net metering or through utility bill savings? If you can kind of unpack where your $2 to $4 million of savings is coming from.
Yes, where we're saving where we're making our money is on the solar panels. That's the offensive. The rest, the efficiencies were kind of the defense. The offense was to go after solar energy to make money in net metering. And that's what it is. We get a credit for the solar energy we produce, and then that's applied to our bills. And so that is what I meant by making money. That's the offense, like the offense of this energy package that we put together. We also are looking at a partnership. So when we first started, we were limited to 1 megawatt of energy, and we pioneered it. We pioneered it. It was only 3/4 of a megawatt, or 750 kilowatts, and now it's up to 1 megawatt, and other partnerships can go to 2 to 3. So now we're entering the game again with our hospital community partner. We're trying to jump another 2 or 3 megawatts to produce energy and make money to apply towards our utilities and towards teacher salaries.
Right. So so your current contract that you have right now, it was an energy service performance contract with integrity. And then moving forward, now that power purchase agreements have been enabled in Arkansas, that's how you plan to finance your next project, right?
Yes, we own the solar panels now. We did not have the solar service agreement option when we started, but with the work with our partner, we were able to get our Public Service Commission to open up solar service agreements with a third party where we partner with the hospital and with Integrity, and we can go get a bigger savings even because of the volume.
Great. Okay. Thank you for explaining that. I know for Santa Barbara, similarly, your Santa Barbara's planning a power purchase agreement, so there will be similar savings where they're paying less than the utility rate for the energy that's being provided by the solar energy. So I'm going to look to the Q&A for some more questions for you. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry, we're still having trouble hearing you. Okay, so while we're waiting for his sound to come back, I see one question that I can tackle really quickly. How can my school find financial resources?
I'm back. Tish, do you have anything?
Yes. Michael, are you with us?
Okay. I'm sorry, we're breaking up, but what did you ask?
Yeah, I think you answered the cost savings question for us already. Okay. So I'm gonna, okay, so I think, well, I was going to tackle one question quickly that asks about where you can find financial resources to help pay for the cost of going solar. So I'm going to make a shameless plug for our website, solarforallschools.org. And we've really put together a bunch of resources through our reports. And we just, along with the report, we have a how-to guide, and it really walks you through step-by-step how to go solar. And in the very back section, we have an intro to solar financing that just breaks down some solar financing terms and options. And then we also have a help desk, again, through our website. So there's plenty of resources that we've tried to accumulate on our website to help you figure out how to finance it. But like Dr. Hester was saying, I think working with a partner like Integrity or Clean Coalition or a solar installer can also help you walk through some of the specific financing that's available with your utility and your state, because it definitely varies from place to place. Okay. Okay, so we have one question about for Laura, asking about the third-party financing and how the microgrids work. And I believe we also have a coalition on the line if that's helpful to have your partner chime in with some more details. Do you want to take a crack at it?
Oh, sure. So we set up a power purchase agreement. Thankfully, we got a fixed rate for 28 years that we, at a minimum, will save almost $8 million in direct costs like that because of the financing. And I think I mentioned, but we have 21 schools, 14 will be solar. And of the 14, 6 will also have battery storage to be microgrids. So that's the plan there, resulting in 90 to 94% reliance on renewables.
Awesome. We are seeing another question, again, for example, how the batteries will be used through a power outage. And we have a slide we can pull up. Nate, if you can help us show that slide. This came, this is available actually from the press release Santa Barbara Unified School District just put out. So just recently announced their project, or announced the developer they chose for the project. So if you can see that, again, I'm not on the project. Sorry, one slide, Nate. There we go. So Laura, do you want to touch on this, basically what can be powered once the grids are up, once microgrids are available.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, you'll tell by my answer that I am not a technical person when it comes to energy use, but I just know what the priorities that we've identified, which is, as I mentioned, kitchens. I think that's the nature of this question, is making sure that, the kitchens can stay functional, so that we can continue to feed hungry kids in this community.
And let's say if something were to happen like it did a few years ago with wildfires leading to mudslides and power outages, do you envision that the community would be able to access the schools, or is that mostly to keep your schools open so students can continue to go to school in an outage, or can community members also benefit from?
Yeah, certainly it would be my, yeah, absolutely. They should be places of evacuation centers, the gyms. I mean, just the spaces alone should be utilized and have been utilized in previous fires that have happened here. I mean, we are seeing, I know you can see on the news, but in California, I mean, the state is fire season has no sort of end and beginning anymore. There were 600 fires at one point about a few weeks ago. It's our new reality. This is the new normal of these extreme climate events. And for sure, for our schools to not only be in service of the students and their families and teachers, but the entire community as a safe place to be, to get food, to get shelter, to get medicine storage. Who knows? I mean, that's what really I see the vision for this is, to be the center of the community in a way that provides help in any way. Wi-Fi, the fact if our battery storage is operating when there's a power outage, people can, use our Wi-Fi. And that's also extremely important during an emergency.
Yeah, well, what's the timeline for your project to be completed, when this can be up and running in your community?
About 1.5 years from now.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. And we're doing, a lot of our buildings are historical, in a Spanish style tile roofs. And so actually all of the solar panels will be the car shades, which is also really important with climate change. We are now, when I was growing up here as a kid, we only a few times a year would get into the 90s in Santa Barbara. It's a very coastal environment. But now with climate change, we're in the 90s, and we will be in the 90s today. We're in the 90s, 3 times that amount. I think it's like 30 some days a year, which for kids, it's hot. Our schools are very few of them have air conditioning because, again, our climate had been so temperate historically, but now so much hotter. So these car shades with solar panels on them will really serve many purposes that students and principals and teachers are excited about. I'm really looking forward to that as a mom of a 9-year-old who gets hot and sweaty during the day and runs like crazy. It will be nice to have more shade on our campuses.
Okay, well, thanks so much to Laura and Michael for sharing your stories. We are almost at the hour, so I think we're just going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all the attendees who have come and shared questions. And again, I will share some resources that we have on our website, solarforallschools.org. So I alluded to our how-to guides, information on financing and how to go solar. We also have a campaign toolkit. So if you're where Laura was 5 years ago and trying to figure out how do I even get people on board, I know we have a lot of community solar advocates in the attending right now. So we do also even have a solar campaign toolkit. So if you're trying to figure out how do I, we don't have a Laura Capps and Michael Hester in my school board. How do we convince them to do? So we also have resources for you as well. Maybe we'll go to the next slide, please. And again, just thank you so much. If you have questions, please shoot us an email at solarschools@generationwinning.org. You have our URL. And we also have more events for you. If you're interested in our for Schools theme today. We have a panel at 4 o'clock Eastern Time about Electrify Your Ride to School, and at 7 p.m. Eastern Time about students leading the charge for solar. Thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone.